that may have logged in online. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Here it is, another third Sabbath of the month, and it's time for health and temperance again. You know, it's a blessing that God has looked out for his people since creation and from sin even to this very moment to continue to provide them and us with health messages. Because without the health messages, especially from the day of sin, where would we be? Where would we be? Our bodies would be so decimated that we would just be ashamed. Because Ellen White tells us that at that time, they had 20 times the vitality or the vital force that we now have. So if not for that, and God sending messages to help us to be healthful, where would we be? So, just in more the, don't want to go to that one yet, introduction, I want to take us to a scripture. Matthew chapter 15. If you can turn in your Bible, Matthew chapter 15. Verses starting at verse 1. And just hold it right there for a moment. As you're turning there, if you remember last Sabbath during the morning health and temperance presentation, I gave us an assignment. How many integumentary, and if you had not, and if you did not know what it meant, during this week, you were to look up that word for understanding. So Sister Diane is doing some corrections here. So how many looked up the word integumentary? Whether you knew it or not, how many paid any focus to it this week? Okay, there was a few that paid attention to the term integumentary. So while we're still going with that. So God has given us health messages. And I'd like to always talk about this term health. Because we as humans, as long as we feel okay, we think that we're in health. We feel okay, we think we're in health. But is that what God really means when he said, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, just to feel okay? Just to feel okay? So, with Israel, and I'm looking at Ministry of Healing, page 277 first, it said, God so dealt with Israel in the wilderness, and he had to bring about many reform changes and to get them to revitalize, that he gave them a whole process of hygiene. In this book, Ministry of Healing, page 277, and if you have the little book Temperance, the last chapter talks about hygiene among the Israelites. It says, in the teaching that God gave to Israel, the preservation of health received careful attention. The people who had come from slavery with uncleanly and unhealthful habits, which it engenders, were subjected to the strictest training in the wilderness before entering Canaan. Strict hygiene practices. Then it goes on, 277, Ministry of Healing, 277, paragraph 2, not only in their religious service, but in all their affairs of daily life was observed the distinction between the clean and the unclean was placed before them. Thorough cleansing of both the person inside and outside and their clothing was required. Because what he was teaching them was this. Ministry of Healing, page 271. In order to have good health, you must have good blood. So God was requiring and bringing them back full circle for reform and to be revitalized. It says, the more perfect the circulation of our blood, the better of the work it will accomplish in bringing forth good health. So that's why we talk over and over and over about getting some exercise and fresh air to make the blood circulate, to bring about good blood. Exercise to get good blood. Then he goes on. The blood and its circulation should not be hindered by tight clothing or bands, or by insufficient clothing of the extremities. See, we have gotten away from some of these health messages that deal with dress because we don't want to offend anyone. But nonetheless, God deals with this. To get circulation, we must not have such tight, restrictive clothing. So this term integumentary, we're going to look at it from various health perspectives. As you can see, we're going to look at it from the Bible, Counsels on Health, Ministry of Healing book, and a little booklet entitled Colorful Cosmetics and Jewelry. So that chapter now, Matthew chapter 15, I think is verses 1 through 11. And I'm going to go through it, and we're going to focus on it. And we're not going to focus on it so much for the what it is actually talking about in the verse, but we're going to look at the principle that it portrays. Okay, so then came to Jesus scribes and Pharisees, which were of Jerusalem, saying, why do thy disciples transgress the tradition of the elders, for they wash not their hands when they eat bread? That's a valid point, huh? You think it's a valid point? Yeah, I mean, we're just talking about hygiene and cleanliness. But he answered and said unto them, why do ye also transgress the commandment of God by your traditions? For God commanding, saying, honor thy father and mother, and he that curseth father and mother, let him die the death. But ye say, whosoever shall say to his father or his mother, it is a gift, by whatsoever thou mightest be profited him. And honor not his father or his mother, he shall be free. Thus have ye made the commandment of God none effect by your traditions? Ye hypocrites. Jesus wasn't ashamed in using that term, ye hypocrites. Well, did Isaiah prophesy of you, saying, this people draweth nigh unto me with their mouth, and honoreth me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. Now, here is the verse. The next verse. But in vain they do worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandment of men. And he called the multitude and said unto them, hear and understand this verse. 11. Not that which goeth into the mouth defileth a man, but that which cometh out of the mouth, this defileth a man. So what Jesus was saying, you can wash your hands, you can be as clean as you want, but what's in you eventually is going to be exhibited outside. That's why inside they didn't care about the commandments of God. They exhibited their traditions of men, of their elders, of their fathers. But remember this, keep this one in the forefront of your mind. That which cometh out of the mouth, this defileth a man. So keep that in the forefront of your mind. So as we go into this system, the integumentary system, we want to look at the term and the definition of health. Because as I stated, we often think if we feel okay, then I might be healthy. I must be healthy. Read this statement in your mind and just salivate on it for a little bit. Health is the state of complete, and I'm going to stop right there for a moment. Complete. Not just in part, feeling okay for a moment, but complete. Physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. Because we might be feeling okay right now, but we may have aught with our brother, not very social well-being. That means we're not healthy. If we can't get along with our brethren, we're not healthy. If we're thinking bad things, we're not healthy. And of course, if we're not feeling good physically, we're not healthy. So this says it's complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. So we may have a little work to do to become complete, Pastor, just as you were talking this morning. To become complete. Another definition, the science and art of preventing disease, prolonging life, and promoting health. So this is what God was dealing with Israel with in the wilderness. He wanted them to be the apple of his eye and the envy of the surrounding nations, in that they were going to be so blessed and so healthy, so spiritual, that he even wants that for us. 3 John verse 2. Who knows what that verse says? 3 John verse 2. That's my favorite verse. Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospereth. So, let's take a look back. Genesis chapter 2, verse 7. How did we get to this integumentary system anyway? So in Genesis chapter 2, verse 7, it says, and the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. So as God formed him and breathed, man became a living soul. And we, in this day and era, we have come to understand that this man, this woman, this individual is made up of 11 body systems. 11 body systems. I'm not going to run through those for the sake of time, but the 11 systems were created and given by God. And today we're dealing with this particular one, the integumentary system, which is simply your skin. Your skin. And that system also includes the hair and nails. So, let's take this dive into this system. This system is one organ of the 10 or 11 organs in our body, and it is the largest of all the organs. Can't you imagine that? Because it covers this whole body. So it is the largest organ. So it's related to enveloping our whole body, covering our whole body. Even with the skin, the hair, everything that this organism has and this system has. Let me slide this over for a moment. Okay, I think it came back up now. Okay, so with this outer layer, this outer organ, what we have is 3 layers that make up the skin. This is the anatomy of the skin. Now, this looks like there's quite a bit going on in here, correct? But do you know, if you have any sense of measurements, that is not even 1/2 of an inch thick? In fact, it is said it's only about 1/3 of an inch thick. All of this, these 3 layers, dermis, epidermis, the dermis, and the hypodermis, that's only about a third of an inch thick. Now, Brother Adama, you're in construction and you deal with measurements. A third of an inch. So we have all of this going on. So again, it comprises of the skin, which those hair, which you have hair follicles, nails, which you will see, and the sweat, there's sweat glands, and other glands. So there's a lot that goes on, especially in this inner member of the skin. As stated, the skin is the largest organ of the body, 3 layers, and these are some of the physiological aspects of the skin, okay? 1, it regulates body temperature. The body is an initial barrier, it covers, so it helps keep pathogens, germs, microorganisms. It filters out some of the UV light when and if we are out in the sun, chemicals and other things. So it helps protect. The skin continually exfoliates, which means it continually sheds. So your skin cells die every few days, replacing itself, so continually exfoliating, shedding, and flaking off. Now here's the other one. The skin, though it be the largest organ of the body, it can stretch and stretch and stretch and stretch. But we don't want it to continue to stretch and stretch and stretch, because that means we're probably getting overweight, overweight, overweight. Oh, yeah, unless you're pregnant. So then, if we then try to bring the skin back to a tight fitness, oh, it's work. It's work. And it's more work than most individuals want to do, because we don't even want to do the first part of exercise to start out with. So let's not try to stretch and stretch and stretch to its capacity. So again, as I shared this already, the epidermis, which is that top layer, the dermis, this middle layer where all the things are going on. And you see there's a vein that runs through with the blood that comes to this area. And so you got oil glands, this under the hair, you got the hair follicles, oil glands, just a lot of things taking place that, if not treated properly, can cause a lot of health concerns. So let's look at something here. Skin disorders. Skin disorders, as you see. Aging, wrinkles, acne, eczema, sunburns, cancer. These are some of the major ones. We're going to talk about a few of them here. Now, one, and the very first one that's listed, we can't do very much about that one. Aging, because there's only one other alternative. So we'll talk a little bit about these others. How about that? So let's talk about the first one, acne. And I wanted some other young people to be here because from teenage up to about 40, the statistics say that this is the most noted condition that individuals come to dermatologists for, battling acne from teenage years all the way up. It's the most common skin condition in America, considering the amount of youth, teenagers we have, and the fact that this condition still affects adults even up until their middle ages. So it's the most common condition in America. So then the next one, eczema. Skin infections, like from severely dry skin and itchy skin. Most older people, seniors, this is a condition that they deal with. Some of us are senior citizens, right, Sister Lottie? So eczema, dry, itchy skin. So that means there are some things that we can do, and we're going to get into that. I want to go back to the one of acne, because there's a common thinking that because it affects most teenagers, and a lot of teenagers into their early 20s and that our diets, bad diets, are the primary reason that afflicts us this condition. That is only partly true. It's not the primary reason. The primary reason, as we talked about, was that what happens is that the oil glands begin to overproduce, and those oil glands producing oil that gets to the surface of our skin, integumentary system, and it becomes blocked, clogged. So the real reason is pores being clogged, and the secondary reason is that bad diet, junk foods, those kind of things are secondary reasons that afflicts and promotes the oil glands to sometimes overproduce. So if we have teens and youth and or those that we communicate with, let's not give them a false sense that if they stop eating, that their oil glands are clear up and they will not have acne. That's not totally the truth. That would be a great help, and it would be a great step in obedience to nutritional and health values, but the main reason is that the pores from oil gland overproduction and some other topical problems create the acne and even the other conditions. Cancer. Skin cancer is the most common cancer in the United States because a lot of people still get out into the sun, and they get out into the sun basically during the wrong time of day, which we're counseled that we should be out in the sun early morning time and late afternoon time to not to avoid basically the ultraviolet rays, the UV rays that cause so much skin damage and actually cause skin cancer. So skin cancer, most common cancer in the United States, it is a kind of skin cancer that starts in the melanocytes. The melanocytes are cells that make the pigment that gives the skin color. The pigment is called melanin, and melanoma typically starts in the skin that's often exposed to skin. So melanoma is the type of skin cancer. So all of us have melanin, which is this pigment that gives us a skin color. Whether it be dark skin, light skin, white, yellow, Asian, whatever, you have melanin. But for most dark-skinned people out in the sun, it helps block most of the UVs that come in, but then it causes another problem, a nutritional problem of vitamin D activity. So one thing is good, and then we have another situation. So those of a light-skinned manner, you don't have enough melanin to protect from the UVs, but you have a good abundance usually of vitamin D. So we just have to work and balance out these things. I know in most black individuals, as from middle age on up, it is recommended then that they get onto vitamin D3 supplements because of dark skin and not allowing the sun to come in and activate the natural processing of vitamin D. And by the way, vitamin D is technically not a vitamin, it's a hormone because it regulates. And for men, it's vitally important that we maintain a nice high level of vitamin D because it relates to our prostate, which is affected as we get older. So you see this, the color of our skin regulating or protecting from UVs, but not allowing the D3 to be adequate enough, then it can affect other areas in men, like the prostate. So again, if you have male individuals that's older and their D levels are low, please advise them to get on to supplements, of course, under doctor's care and instructions. And I've used this before because in all this, and the fact that God is over time and over time and over time continues to send health messages through his agents, as we talked about this morning, to his servants, he has no pleasure in seeing his creation die, especially when he continues to try to help us along with our health. He has no pleasure in that. So these are just a couple verses I wanted to, as I live, saith the Lord, I have no pleasure in the death of the wicked either, but that the wicked should turn from his way and live. So turn. If we're not practicing and doing that which we know to do, then we need to turn. Unfortunately, if we ever inquire about any type of health remedies for, and we're talking about today, the integumentary, the skin, if we inquire, one of the first things they're going to advise is some type of medication. Topical medication, internal medications, and Jeremiah declared, Jeremiah 46:7, in vain shalt thou use many medicines, they shall not be cured. That's why I started out earlier talking about health. We can use the medications and they can help, but they do not cure and they do not heal. They help. God is seeking to heal us completely, for as completely as we can be healed in this carnal body. So that's why he gave the health laws. That's why he gave those to Israel, to bring them to the point of health where he wanted them, and us as well. That's why when the Advent movement started in the mid-1800s, in 1861, I believe it was, opened up a health message. And the health message he continued to give to the prophet to what we now have today, knowing that from this one little word, which is 8 health law principles, if we would do them diligently, like the word he used in the wilderness to Israel, if thou diligently hearken to the voice, God would do wonders for us health-wise. Do you believe that? And so this New Start health law, ministry of healing, 127, it spells it out. Pure air, sunlight, abstemiousness, which means a balanced nutritional diet, rest, exercise, a proper diet, the use of water, trust in the divine. Again, if we practice those diligently, our health would come up. Seriously, our health would really, really come up if we practice those diligently. Now, in our holistic program and the health and temperature department, when individuals talk to us about some condition and not feeling good and any of those situations, one of the first things we are taught to ask, which health law at this moment during this condition are you violating? So it'd be the same thing with our skin conditions. Which health law are we violating? It says the use of natural remedies, right here, the use of natural remedies requires an amount of care and effort that many are not willing to give. But yet we say, God, heal me. Too little attention is generally given to the preservation of health. It is far better to prevent disease than to know how to treat it when it's contracted. And I cannot tell you the amount of these 2 pamphlets that I share and I send out all around. One is talking about prevention or prescription, because we're going to do one or the other. When we're not feeling good, we are going to do one or the other. We're going to practice prevention, getting back to the health laws, or we're going to go prescription route, medication. And then the Nature's Formula for Health, this little pamphlet is always out on the table as well. These are great witnessing tools. Share them, send them out, mail them out, give them. And just another slide to help break that down some more. This statement, when you understand the 8 principles of natural health, you begin to see them in many places. When you see what you see in the New Start natural health, others leave out. Because you have other health institutions, and they're teaching a principle of natural health. But it's one that most of them leave out. You know which one that is? The last, they don't include God as the healer and the restorer of health. The cursor keeps getting lost here. Bear with me as I try to bear with this cursor. Let me just have to go to the print. So when we need to take a practice approach to treating some of the skin conditions, and we talked about acne, eczema, and the cancers. I can't get that one off yet till the cursor comes back up. So let's look at what we can do to address some of these issues. If you remember the picture of the layers of the skin, what can we do that would positively affect those? Well, we talked about the 8 health laws. Enough water creates or gives the body elasticity and helps. Some of the other conditions were because of dry skin, and so water will help. And so God already knew how to take care of this body by telling us how much water we need every day. So water, that's a health law. Drinking adequate amounts, washing and cleansing the face, nostrils, the body external, the body internal, and the clothing. So clothing is one of those items that affects the external. Why? Because it rests upon the external. No, it's not going back. In fact, it's going further than I want to anyway. So it's not going back. Let me see if I can do it this way. Okay. So as I stated before, if you go in for any other consultations, first they're going to start asking and prescribing medications and cosmetic coverings, especially for the exterior. So we want to avoid topicals. We want to avoid things that's going to irritate the skin. Practice good hygiene. Keep your hands out of your facial area, because though we sit here right now, you cannot imagine the amount of germs and things floating in this air, and just touching it and touching your face can help clog pores. So keep, especially unwashed hands, keep those away from your face and sensitive skin areas. Avoid the high sun during the day, the UVs. Wrinkle control. It can come with aging, but generally, the skin cells just under the outer layers have become damaged to some degree, some way that we have damaged those skin cells. And externally, the skin has become damaged from the UV rays or bruising or for some other reasons. Another good way is to have good gut health. There was a statement that says, death begins in the colon, in your gut area. So if we have a bad gut health situation, that affects everything. That affects our scripture, Matthew 15, and that last verse, I think it was 11, that which is in, that's what's going to be shown and manifested outside. So bad gut health, bad internal health is going to be exhibited outwardly. And then it says, trust and obey. Many expect God, will, because he's a loving God, just to heal him because you cry unto God, God, please touch me, please heal me, please heal me. But the rest of this quote from Christian Temperance and Bible Hygiene declares, many expect that God will keep them from sicknesses merely because they ask him to do so, but the prayers of those who do not regard the laws of life, the health laws, God cannot answer because their faith is not made perfect by their works, by us doing our part, health-wise. So, we talked a little about the inside, the internal, taking good health, care of our health, making sure our blood supply is good, and as the blood flows through the middle portion of the skin layers, it's bringing nutrition to that area if we are properly eating and providing good nutrition. But the blood can bring, and it can load the skin up with impurities if that's where we are, if we have not been cleansing. And so that creates even more skin problems. So we want to make sure that we do practice good internal health practices, as well as external, which I'm going to move into. In the world, much time is given to matters of eating and drinking and dressing. Shall we be more like the world, or shall we show that we cannot spend our time as they do? Be careful not to go to extremes. Dress. And dress is important in skincare. Why? Because it lays right on the external part of the skin. In this little book, Colorful Cosmetics and Jewelries, it's created quite a disturbance in some years past. I don't know if you've ever read it, if you've ever understood it, but it did. It talked about extremely tight-fitting clothing, restricting blood circulation. Good circulation of blood helps promote good health, right? So it talked about extremely tight-fitting clothing. It talked about clothing that irritates your skin, especially if you have already sensitive skin. And it talked about some of the types of clothing, synthetics and nylons, and some of the even now man-made materials that can be irritating. And for some individuals, even some wools irritate. So you, again, knowing your skin and what irritates, but we need to be more mindful of what we're putting on the skin. Israel in the wilderness, God gave them and told them what to wear, their dress. We can go all the way back to Adam and Eve. God first clothed them in the pure sense of nakedness, his robe of righteousness. But when they sinned, they made a choice as to what clothing they were going to wear. And what did they choose? Fig leaves. That was not pleasing to God. So God again had to give them the clothing that he wanted, coats of skins. And of course, that was part of the sacrificial system because that's what that represented. But we don't often ask God, is this appropriate? We say, oh, I like this. Oh, it looks good. It looks good on that person. It might look good on me. And not so the case. So we need to be mindful of the clothing that we choose to wear. And then another one, as we talked about, actually what causes some skin conditions is the blocking and the clogging of pores. And we talked about the oil glands overproducing. But here's another one. In a world now where body artistry, tattoos, and skin markings and cuttings is off the chain, but they're affecting the outer layer of your skin. It's affecting your pores. Deuteronomy 14 and Leviticus 21 talks about God said, you're holy. Don't be marking and cutting yourself. So tattoos breach the skin, which means that the skin can have infections and other complications are possible, including allergic reactions. The tattoo dyes, especially the red, greens, the yellows, and the blue dyes, can cause allergic skin reactions, such as itchy, rashy, and leaving the tattoo site in an ill manner. But we don't think about those things. We are looking at the fact that this is the now trend. And Satan is deceiving us. All of this relates to a famous person in the Bible. Need I say her name? Jezebel. She was in strict opposition to God and his people. And she went into this manner. You can read about it in 1 Kings 18. But the skin piercings, the cosmetics, all the decking of the jewelry, God did not ordain that. So even with earrings, you're punching holes in your skin. God did not ordain us to cut and to mark and punch holes in our skin. He's trying to make us whole. He's trying to make us healthy. God calls his church out to be comely and delicate and true. And those scriptures there will tell that. And Jezebel, in opposition, adorned herself, she decked herself, and she represents the worshipers against God. Those scriptures. Those are damaging to the outer layers of the skin. So, and I know lots of individuals with the markings, body art, as from head to toe, all over, tattoos, and they think it looks good. And others think it looks good because they're in it together. But God is not concerned about that extremity, that external part. He's concerned about the inner man, that character man. And that verse in 1 Samuel 16:7, for the Lord seeth not as man seeth, for man looketh on the outward appearance, but the Lord looketh on our heart, our mind, our characters, traits. And so on the WhatsApp, I placed this quote, especially should every article which comes into contact with the skin be kept clean. If we look at all those body arts and tattoos and artistry things, that's not clean. That's not clean, but it's directly attributed and laying on our skin. And it should be free from offensive odors. Nothing of an irritating manner should be placed against our skin. So if you have something that's irritating, it should not be there. Some may remember seeing this on the WhatsApp. Pastor Loma Kane did a long writ and it had been put on there. But if you relate to someone, especially in this religious manner, then you need to dress like it. We dress according to who we relate to. We say things according to who we relate to. Do you agree? If you want to be taken seriously in the work of God, then dress like you're on God's team. And then it goes into things that ministers, how they have begun ministers in the pulpit and their FUBU and their football outfits like they're going to a game and this, that, and the other. But not just the minister, but us too. When we stand before the people of God, we should be representative. So we have a little work to do as far as reformation, as far in the line of dress reform, to make sure our health, as it relates to our integumentary system, our skin, can be the best it can be. We talked about the blood circulation. It's actually easier to stay well than to get well. If you're well, it's easier to stay well. Look at our brethren who's not of the best of health now. It's not easy regaining health. If you have a measure of health, it's easier to practice the principles that God has given us to stay healthy. It is. And I used to remember hearing this all the time. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So, brethren, all I can do is admonish us. God has given the health principles for a purpose to help us to try to attain that level of health where we are complete. But it's up to us to choose whether we're going to follow that route or we're going to eventually fall into the way of prescriptions and medications that do not heal. They do have a place. They can help stabilize, but they do not heal. And that's one thing about God. God is looking to heal his people completely. God is wanting his people to be holistic, and holistic deals with the base, the root cause, and addressing the base and the root cause rather than the symptoms and trying to just make us feel good. Brethren, I'm going to close with that. I'm sure there may be a question or two or a comment, and then we'll close from there at this point. Can we get a mic, please? Sister Annette?
Yeah, I have both. A quick observation that may help somebody.
Sure.
Reasoning from cause to effect, as we're admonished to do, I found out that with acne, sugar, and I don't know if it's acne clinically, but sugar consumption, since we cut out sugar out of our diet, every time I do have it now, I break out. So I've been able, since it's been cut out, I've been able to notice that pattern, that every time I consume some, I break out. So that may help somebody. I don't know. The other one is a question, and this is the second time in the past week or so that the thought has come to my mind. When you're talking about the skin, it has 3 layers. And I was just thinking, our body is the temple of God, is the tabernacle of God. Has anybody studied or considered how there are actually the organs of our body are represented in the sanctuary? Am I off track or what? Because when you say 3 layers of skin, I remember there were 3 different layers of skin on top of the tabernacle. So that was just an interesting observation. I don't know if anybody's gone into that.
I've looked at it a little bit, but not go into very deeply because it can take you into some other tangents, but I just looked at it a little bit. The sugar part is real because those are the things, again, that either activate the oil glands and the inner glands in those layers and overproduce and to cause the clogging of the pores. Some of us, you know, when I was young and going through my conditions, I didn't know any of this. Not until I was, at an age where now I can just manage and maintain. But if we can help each other, especially our young, to have a better diet, and letting them understand that's not the ultimate workings of it, but that is what goes along with clogging the pores. So then they have to make sure that they're cleansed externally and try to stay cleansed as well as internally. But the sugar and some of those actually increase the overproduction of oil glands. Oh, okay.
I was just going to bounce off of what you and Annette had said, and it's that young group of people that usually feel, I'm healthy, I can eat anything I want and it's not going to bother me because I'm never going to die and I don't have to worry about my diet. And so they eat anything and everything, and most of the time, especially if they're school busy, college age, they're really busy, and so they just pick up junk food to eat most of the time. So it makes sense that that crowd is the one that is particularly bothered. However, this is also a good way of showing them that while they may think that they're young and are going to never die, so they can do whatever they want because they're not going to die at 20, they're not thinking about being 60, 70, 80. But that's an avenue of showing them, yeah, what you eat does make a difference. You may not be looking at arthritis and cancer and all those kind of things right now, but cancer is getting much younger anyhow. Mm-hmm. It's a way of proving to them, yes, what you eat does make a difference now, even though you are young. And I'll just also mention, in addition to that, colloidal silver seems to also help. If you spray colloidal silver on your face, if a person has that condition, that helps to deal with the bacteria that's getting kind of stuck in that plug. And if anybody ever wants any, you can always see me. But the skin is such an amazing thing that we really don't think about how it really contains everything that we have. In fact, we're 75% water? If we didn't have our skin, we would just be, a puddle of water or something. So our skin is really, really, really important, and being mindful of that and taking care of it, and doing the things that will help to keep it for as long as possible. Yeah. And as we get younger, then we can avoid wrinkles as long as we can, and all those wonderful things.
We were talking about skincare external, the washing. So, even hydrotherapy, little hot water, cold water applications, it helps the external. Now, here's one that I use. It's called the pH Balance Shiver Gel. It's strictly aloe vera. And that's it's a natural product. You just take the gel out of the aloe plant and just, after you washed, and it helps. It helps heal, and it helps protect. I think the mic was, is that it? Oh.
I was just going to say something else in the interim. You mentioned that it's easier to prevent instead of try get well afterwards. And it is really a message that we have to try get embedded even within our own selves. Not only just to prevent, but if we see things start creeping into our lives, into our health, don't just brush that away and say, that's a little ache, I can live with that. And you never attend to it, because if you wait until it gets to a point that it really becomes annoying, you have lost a lot of time. For instance, such as like Parkinson's, which is a condition that people shake. There are supplements that can be helpful if you catch it very early and start to use it very early. But if you let that thing get embedded, some of those supplements aren't going to help anymore. So that's just an example that let's not ignore stuff. Let us figure out what maybe we're not doing quite right. Mm-hmm. If we can improve our following of the laws of health, and if there's some other supplements or some other specifics as far as exercises or massage or whatever modality, hydrotherapy, whatever modality that can we use to improve that condition, it is really best and to our advantage that we work on this problem from early and just not let it linger on for months and months and maybe a couple years, and then you get to the point, well, maybe I should attend to it. Well, by that time, it's so far along that you may end up being faced with decisions you wished you never had to face.
Now, before you start, and another, as far as like dry skin and those things, using some more natural things. This is 100% virgin coconut oil. A very good use for moisturizing. And you don't have to use a lot, just a little bit, but it's more natural than some of the other cosmetic types. And then we want to try to make sure that we're not using a lot of chemical things, putting all those on our skin. Those that are in the, going out in the sun, this is about the closest sunscreen protector that I've found is by the Pipit. And this is an SPF 50, but it's as close to natural and herbal and all that I've found. And then we want to make sure the things we're putting on our skin, like deodorants and things, if you need to use those, if you use them, find the products that has no alcohol, no aluminum, and some other chemicals. Schmidt's and Tom's are two of the very best that I've found. Okay, Brother Adama.
I was going to mention also the choice of soap, the kind of soap you use. I have noticed that there's some kind, when I use them, I have problems. And chlorine also, excuse me, when there's a lot of that in water, sometimes you can even smell it from
Yes.
the water. And yeah, that also is not good for the skin,
Yeah.
per se. Annette asked a question about the 3 layers thing, and if the organs have something to do with the fact that it says our body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. I would say we have to be very, very, very careful, because it's easy to come out with some sort of doctrines.
Yes.
And I was reading, there was a guy called Kellogg. I came across some of his letters, and Ellen G. White was telling me to come back to reason that it's not like that at all. But he wrote a book, I think it is Living Temple, or
The Living Temple.
The Living Temple, where he has a lot of ugly, crazy stuff in there.
Yeah.
And that was a problem in the past with the Seventh-day
Kellogg went
Adventists.
off into pantheism and all of
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So just a note of, let's be careful. But what we're saying with the youth, you mentioned with the youth, there's some foolish things the youth are tempted to do just to show off. I remember when I was very young, me and my friend, we were doing some competition to show who's the toughest, who can take this cup and drink it without making a face, things like that. And it gave me ulcers. And it's by the grace of God that the ulcers are gone, but it took a long time for me to recover from those ulcers. Just because, you want to impress people, they say, oh, who's brave? Who's brave? Oh, no, you are not brave. You just take it, and later it affects the rest of your life. So the youth should be very, very, very careful. Very careful.
And with that statement, that's why I put the little part about the body art tattooing, because once you go off into that, either you can't get that off of you, or it's very expensive and very painful. But it just takes you into a different aura.
You can't really present a health presentation very effectively without bringing in the 8 natural laws of health.
Okay.
Because you have to have the solution to the problems. And what God has given us by introducing these laws to us is really the foundation for our staying healthy. So leaving it out would be, it could be harmful or dangerous or incomplete unless you are elaborating on some aspect of health that needs to be emphasized. But I say that to say that our problems that we encounter as we go back and examine what didn't I do or what did I do, it will always come back to our failure to comply, whether it was ignorantly or unconsciously or knowingly, that we did not obey something there. So what happens in many instances, and like I tried to emphasize in the message this morning, even for children or youth, parents have to take a real notice of instructing their children, even like themselves as well, to comply with God's laws, to obey God. If you want to be healthy spiritually as well as physically, it's the same thing that is required, and that is God has the answers. And if we walk in harmony with His leading, His directives, we'll be all right. Now, an area where we can become very stubborn is when we get older and we end up neglecting some areas of the 8 natural laws because we are older. We tend to believe that, this is not, I can't do this anymore. But the Lord is not asking you to do things to the extent to which you did it when you were a teenager, but He's asking you to do those things because the laws still apply to us no matter what age we are. But what happens to us is that we end up at times, and I've seen it more often than not, we start to minimize and sometimes even leave out, take a simple thing like drinking water, enough water, to say that we will remain hydrated, or even walking and getting sufficient exercise. Yes, maybe once every 3 weeks or whatever, we may do something. Why? Because of where we are in life at that point. But it doesn't work that way. Obedience is not a when I feel to. Obedience is because you need to. And we just have to keep that in mind. We have to hear the voice of God and follow it and not be picky and choosy in regards to whether we need it or not. God knows what we need. He told us. We just have to comply with it until we die or get translated.
This morning it was interesting. Minty and I we were talking about some of the same thing, Elder Minty. And I said, Minty, I was tired this week. This was a tiring week, and I just didn't feel like exercising like I normally do. And he said, man, me too. I didn't feel like it either. But we came right back to say, well, it's not that we want to. It is not that we have to do as much as we used to, but we have to do something of that order. And it's true. And for most of us, our health law nemesis is exercise. It's so many benefits, so many. Circulation of blood, getting more oxygen, help you rest, encourage you to practice hygiene. So many benefits, but we won't do it. We won't do it. That's Brother Lloyd.
Yes, I just wanted to say that basically you have raised my consciousness on the 8 laws of health. And you realize that even though you're within the Adventist circle, most of us don't pay attention to the 8 laws of health, diet, and so forth like that. We tend to take that for granted. But realizing how important it is, it has helped to change, it has changed my outlook on it, and it also has changed my lifestyle in terms of what I put into my system. I've become too conscious of that now. It bothers my wife now that I don't just eat anything anymore, you know. But I think it's very important. I relate it to, you know, the children of Israel when they came out of Egypt and they didn't want to change what they ate. They were not conscious of their health and diet. They wanted to go back into it. So I commend you in, you know, promoting the health message, because it's important, and I think that we tend to take it for granted. People just want to eat and do what they want to do, and with no conscience of that. And I appreciate the health message.
So, Sister Paula, since you mentioned that, I want to mention the scripture, 1 Corinthians 10:31, and we remember what that says, whether therefore ye eat, drink, or whatsoever you do to the glory of God. So we actually leave this part out. That is the last part of that T for the health law, the principles, trusting in God. So we leave that part out. But everything that we do, every facet of our life, we're supposed to do to the glory of God.
I was just going to invite Brother Lloyd back next month. We do this monthly. This time, bring your wife. She'll be impressed too, and you'll be on the same page. So that's what we try to do here is encourage, you know, not browbeat, but we encourage people to do what is right, what God has put already. And I consider the 8 laws of health to be gifts. There are gifts to us, which if we use them regularly, routinely, daily, we will stay healthy, you know.
Another aspect that I'm thinking of that we need also to keep our minds on is the trusting in the Lord aspect. And we should pray and pray and trust in God and pray, because the devil can make people sick also. It is true, the law, the health laws are there. They help us to maintain health, live healthy. But there is another aspect that we do not see with the carnal eyes. The devil makes people sick. So if we are not trusting in God and we are not praying, and if we are disobeying God also in one way or the other, God can allow the devil to strike us with sickness. Ellen G. White said that in the last day also, things will be happening in the way that the devil will be making a lot of miracles. But this is with those he has made sick with his satanic power. And then he will remove his spell off of them, and then they will be healed. And since people are not ready to acknowledge that the devil can do those miracles, they will say, oh, it's the hand of God. And they will be very, very deceived. So we need to know also, yes, there are cases, there are sicknesses that have their root in evil spirits. And we need to pray. You will notice that in most of the healing Jesus did, he cast out demons often also. He rebuked demons sometimes also. So this is to say that we pray. Ellen G. White said, oh, if God's people eye would be open to see how the devil is making them sick. That even in her case, there was one night she was not feeling good. She felt like the devil was pressing on her, and she had to pray and ask for help. And then it got lifted off of her. So there are those cases also. It's not always, did I break some of the earth law or something? Sometimes the devil is trying, but he wouldn't want us to to know that he's the one doing it, he will draw our attention that, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? Yet, he's bringing in some sickness that we need to rebuke him and position ourselves fully under God for healing.
And so if you notice through all our health presentations, even from the 10-minute ones on Sabbath morning to the afternoon ones, we're always interspersing the 8 health laws, and even this one, so we're always focusing, and we've been highlighting trusting God more. So, is there one other comment? Is that another comment?
Yeah, I just did someone.
Diane, and then Pastor.
You know, the Lord takes into account what we do and don't know. Much of the time, from my recollection of Ellen White's life, is that she was very unhealthy at a point in time. She apparently had a heart condition and maybe even congestive heart failure. And she was overweight at a point in time. But it seems like most of that happened before she got the information on health. Because when she got the information on health and she changed her diet and so forth, she lost 25 pounds in about a year. That means she had that much excess weight. And we know excess weight is a contributor to heart disease. So I think what we can take away from this is that in ignorance, yes, the Lord will supernaturally, if he chooses to make up for what we are genuinely ignorant of. But if we're not ignorant of what we should do and we get sick, we should not expect at that point, and I think you have a reference in the presentation that basically bears this thing out. If we get sick and we knew better and we didn't do what we knew to do, the Lord's not going to answer a prayer. So he really takes into consideration what we do and don't know. We can't just expect him to heal us if we knew better, but if we didn't know better, then yes, he will definitely work whatever he sees is for our best good.
I think this is the quote that you were talking about here. Pastor?
You want to read it?
Oh, this quote?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I have a reason.
Okay. So this quote about health. Many expect that God will keep them from sickness merely because they ask him to do so. But the prayers of those who do not regard the laws of life, God cannot answer because their faith is not made perfect by their works. When we do all on our part to ensure health, then we may expect that good results will follow, and we can ask God in faith to bless our efforts. Guys, Christian Temperance and Bible Hygienes, page 108, paragraph 1.
Thank you. The reason why I asked you to read it is because I read something this morning as well. And as I'm sitting down here and I'm listening to it, and this is health. We're dealing more so from the context of health. But it also, and this is almost like running into the message this morning with the message this afternoon. Because God is he's really looking out for us, our best interests. The one that I had read, if you recall, was the one from Talk to Ministers. And this was to the leaders of the church. And we know that the members don't usually go any higher than the leaders. Well, she said, if we neglect to walk in the light given, it becomes darkness to us. And the darkness is proportionate to the light and privileges which we have not improved. So we get from bad to worse based upon the light we got, even on health, even though I might have emphasized more so from the context of spiritual things, which, bottom line, obedience. Obedience to all that God reveals to us. And she says, Christ says, if therefore the light it is in thee be darkness, how great is that darkness? If we walk in the knowledge of the truth, our light will shine to those around us in spirit, in words, in action. So we can display the energy of truth if we obey it, even more than we do without God's approbation. We will be fruitful branches of the living vine. If we know God's requirements and claim to love Him, yet cherish sin, God will not hear us. And when we ask for His blessing, for He does not minister to sin. So it all ties in together and tells us one important truth, and that is we need to trust God. We need to believe God. If we want, whether it is physical or spiritual blessings, we have to hear His voice and follow it. If we don't, we lose big time. We lose more than we may have imagined, not just in terms of the world to come, but also in the present life. Because we lose our, not just the spirituality, but we lose our physical health. So it all ties together. And that brings me to the conclusion that even though we may have, when we line up the 8 natural laws of health, we have trust in God at the bottom of the list, and it's really supposed to be at the top. Because all this stuff that we are saying we need to do, we have to do it with the help of the Lord. So not that it's wrong to have it at the bottom, but what it shows you from the beginning to the end, we need to include Him in all of those areas, because there are times when we don't want to drink water. I know there was a time in my life I loved juice. I did not like water. I didn't want to drink water. I didn't used to drink water. Now I love water. You'll think it is juice. I enjoy it more. I could go for months without drinking any juice because I just love water. But I had to get to the point where I wanted so much to obey God that He has put that love in me for something that is best for me. And I believe that that is the same with all aspects of God's requirements, that no matter what it is we do not like to do, even in the spiritual realm as well as in the physical realm, the Lord is saying, look, if you do it for me, even if it is you didn't like to do it, but you ask me to be involved in your life and to help you, I will change even your taste buds in spiritual as well as physical things. So, we start off first of all trusting God that the instructions He's given us, even in regards to the 8 natural laws of health, that they are best because they came from Him. And as we do that, we apply all the others, and we end at the bottom of it saying, trust in Him. So we've got to trust Him from the beginning to the end of the application of whether it is the spiritual laws or the physical laws. And that's the only way we will be okay.
Amen. Elder Minty, and you think you have the last one?
The quote that was just quoted, you can't expect God to create a miracle after you've been privy to the information and you have not acted on it. That conversation myself and Brother Mike had this morning about the exercise. We talk about what will happen in the time of trouble, fleeing, but we can't run 30 seconds down the road. But we expect God is going to save us. No. A lot of us going to get mowed down if we being honest. If they came in here right now and said, we killing every Sabbath keeper within gunshot range, most of us cannot run far enough. God helps those who help themselves. One of the conversations myself and Mike came to the same conclusion. We don't exercise because of a form of vanity or, it all boiled down to the payoff and the benefit. We'd rather put ourselves through the rigor now. So when the time comes, if needed, because I'm not up there in age as Mike is, but I'll be 50 this year, and I can feel it. I can feel it. During a holiday period, y'all see me go through this year after year. I usually ease off the gas during the holiday season. And then right around spring, I'll crank back up to working out. And every year, what do I tell you? I regret taking my foot off the gas during the holiday season, because to start it and make it a part of your routine is more difficult than if it's already part of your routine and it's just like getting up, saying your prayers, having to worship, and eating healthy. You have to make this a lifestyle for it to benefit you later on, or when the time comes that it's needed the most. It has to have already been part of your lifestyle. Yeah, there are current benefits, yes, but that's not why myself and Brother Mike said that we do it. We do it because we know we're getting up there in age, and we don't want to get to a point where our body betray us when we need it the most, like to save the life of a brother, or just something as simple as helping somebody move. You know how crushed I would be if I couldn't at least help one of y'all pick something up? No. So we should incorporate these laws into our average day and day. So when the time comes and they say, well, we're going to do this to all the Sabbath keepers, we're going to do that. You say, oh, no, Lord. My Lord already put it in me that I'm equipped for this. I'm already prepared for this because I've been eating right. My mind process and my thinking process is to the level that I can discern these things. I can know because I've been prepping my body. I can get away. We should consider that.
All right, brethren, I thank you very much for sacrificing your time this afternoon and being with us as we've gone through this topic of the integumentary system, one of the 11 body systems, and dealing with the skin, the hair, nails, the health internally and externally. So thank you for your comments, and we're going to close with prayer.